The gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Barr, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Perlmutter, and thanks to our witnesses. One of the pieces of feedback I receive frequently from my constituents in the banking business is that it's difficult to invest in low, moderate income communities when there's lack of clarity in the examination process for CRA. So let me start with Dr. Getter. Do you believe that banks will best serve and invest in communities when they have a clear understanding of expectations from regulators, when it's objective as opposed to subjective in the exams?
Sure, and also with credit histories from the borrowers in those communities. So when income alone is not the only underwriting criteria, credit history is important, and there's also fair housing laws and equal credit opportunity.
Well, just back to the point, it's the lack of clarity is a problem. And to Mr. Leidy's testimony, and I'll just quote directly from his written testimony, community banks experience inconsistencies in the examination process. The inconsistent manner in which loans receive CRA credit occurs between examinations within an agency as well as between agencies. This makes it incredibly difficult for community banks to plan and implement their CRA requirements responsibly. Dr. Getter, do you believe that this interagency proposal addresses that concern sufficiently?
It definitely addresses that concern. Now, again, if a bank wanted to partner, let's say, with a CDFI, they would not get as much credit as if they held that loan on the books.
Well, let me get specific, and I'll ask Mr. Leidy to comment on this too. I think it's great that the interagency proposal adopts former comptroller Otting's proposal that an investment could receive a binding decision, or a proposed investment or proposed loan could receive a binding decision about whether or not that loan or investment would be eligible for CRA credit. I think that provides the certainty that we need. However, on this illustrative list of activities, which I think is a good idea, a safe harbor, one of the problems that one of my constituent banks has brought to my attention, a bank that does a great job with CRA and invests in low and moderate income communities quite a bit, is this issue on revitalization. And what my constituents said to me, and this is the compliance officer, the CRA compliance officer of the bank, was concerned that the revitalization among the 11 categories that was listed in the proposal only counts if it is under a government program. And she said there are a lot of private groups or projects that revitalize areas, especially in rural areas. Most of our current community development activities in the revitalization bucket would no longer count. Do you believe, Dr. Getter and Mr. Leidy, that this is a flaw in this in the proposal?
I would have to review that. I wouldn't call it necessarily a flaw.
Well, Mr. Leidy, what do you think?
I would have to look at the details, but I would say that a lot of the CRA lending we do is direct without government programs.
Right, that's a problem. I think the proposal should revise that. There should be opportunity for credit even when a government program is not involved. Let me also ask Mr. Leidy a question about an alternative to CRA. Rather than breathing new life into an antiquated mechanism like CRA, why not supercharge opportunity zones and incentivize capital formation in underserved areas through tax relief? Tax relief for community bank retained earnings can promote lending to underserved and rural areas, and this tax relief would strengthen community banks' capital and their ability to lend, create a more level playing field in the financial ecosystem, and increase access to capital in underserved areas around the U.S. Mr. Leidy, would providing tax relief for community banks' retained earnings increase access to capital in communities that are traditionally underserved?
Absolutely, it would. If we had more capital to deploy, we want to efficiently deploy that, and so that would certainly help us have more to disperse.
Well, I'm exploring legislation to do just that. I think it's a suitable alternative, or at least a supplement to CRA, and I'm going to be introducing legislation to that effect. Final feedback, and this is, I don't have time to elicit a comment, but One of my constituent bank compliance officers said that the proposal's multiple new tests, subtests, and factors would subject numerous discrete areas of bank operations to evaluation, and the complexity and vast new data collection and reporting requirements would not facilitate the issue of determining whether or not an activity would result in CRA credit. That's why there needs to be a longer implementation period for this, and certainly a longer comment period. This is a highly complex proposal, and we need more time to
Your time is up. Speaking of needing more time, the gentleman's time
Thank you.
has
I yield
expired,
back.
and he yields back.